Kia ora and welcome to the Niggly Niche Cast. I am the Diggity Doodah Doc, aka the Slipper on the right foot today, and we are here to talk about the Aotearoa Blackcaps, recapping their game against Afghanistan and kind of touching base after the first stanza of the World Cup for the Blackcaps. That means the wild card is on the other line, and he is here to offer his opinions on the Blackcaps. First though, wild card, you can support the Niche Cache on Patreon or any other way. Like, subscribe, rate, review, all that good stuff. If you want to sponsor the Niche Cast, hit us up and you can get your little antics talked about right here in this space. So support the Niche Cache if you appreciate what we're doing. If you enjoy what we're doing, tell us and let's get some feedback, get some good ideas flowing. Otherwise, wildcard. It's Monday morning, so I hope your weekend has been well. Do you have any thoughts or basis of an idea on the New Zealand Warriors? You don't support the Warriors. Let's make that vitally clear. You support the Dragons, who are in action tonight. But before we get on some Blackcaps talk, I just want to gauge your perspective on the Warriors from a external point of view. So how the fuck are you after the weekend, and what are you thinking about the Warriors at the moment after a pretty woeful loss to the Melbourne Storm?
I am pretty bloody exhausted there, mate, from all the multiple World Cups all going on during the middle of the night. It's not easy being on the other side of the world. But Warriors, who played at a much more reasonable time on Saturday evening. Oh man, they just seem like a team. To be honest, it's not the nicest thing to say about a team, but they seem like a team that's had the fun coached out of them. And I don't know if that's specifically down to the coach or down to like a few other factors, personnel being a large issue of it, although, Kearney and his lads have recruited a lot of these guys, so I'm not sure if that is necessarily an excuse. Perhaps there's a little bit of the old Sean Johnson, for good and for bad, papered over a few cracks just because of his ability to bust open a line or whatever, just, a bit of raw speed and a bit of stepping ability. Yeah, I don't know, they're not a lot of fun to watch these days, Doc, I'll be honest, they're not much fun.
And that's the biggest issue. There's just no identity. Like, no one knows what this Warriors team's up to. They don't defend well, they don't attack well. They don't even represent Warriors fans, which is the worst thing. There's a severe disconnect between the Warriors community that I feel and see as someone who writes about the Warriors pretty in depth. Yeah, just no connection to what the people of the Warriors wider whānau want and represent. The seed I want to plant, and I kind of planted this in my diary entry, is that I'm very interested to see what happens now, because there's always a discussion about the coach of the Warriors, and I written extensively about change at the Warriors, the winds of change, and if you sack the coach and just get back into this whole cycle that has been the status quo ever since the Warriors started, as a new coach coming in, there's nothing changing. You're just doing the same thing you've always done, and fire the coach, get a new coach in, he sucks, get a new coach in, there's no change there. So, and I thoroughly believe that the Warriors have the best staff they've ever had. So we were talking about comparisons for Roger Tuivasa-Sheck as someone who's trying really hard, is clearly one of the best players in the competition. He's trying really hard, but his team isn't responding with him. We're trying to look around the sporting world for a player like Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, but that kind of flowed into an idea about, how the Portland Trailblazers had to, after last season, they had to come back, and a lot of people were saying, you got to do this, you got to do that, and they just got better as a team. They didn't fire anyone, they didn't hire anyone, they just got better as a team with some severe self-reflection and development. And I think, this is the thing, I'm interested, intrigued, and enticed by how the Warriors changed their season around But I think you've got to go down that route of just letting the people, the good people you have hired, because they're all very good at their jobs, like Greg Bullis, who was the Jersey Flegg coach, who, like, all the Warriors teams are struggling. That's also a key point here. The whole club is struggling. But Greg Bullis, who coaches Jersey Flegg under 20s, he was like just one of the best junior coaches in the whole rugby league sphere from Western Sydney. Nathan Kalisz, great coach. Todd Payton, great assistant coach. All these dudes. Peter O'Sullivan, one of the best recruitment managers there's ever been. So I want to see that group of good people that have been hired sorted out. And I want to see how they sort it out. But I don't think there's any need for, drastic measures. I'm just in a spot where I just want to see what happens with this Warriors team, because it's not too good right now, but it's not a matter of they're playing terrible. It's just that there's nothing. The Warriors are just a nothing team.
Yeah, that's a pretty good summation of what I saw on Saturday night. They do seem like a nothing team. And they had that spell where they had, back-to-back penalties on the Storm goal line, down by about, 8 or 10 points or something like that. Like this Storm had a fella in the bin as well. Like, this was their chance, and they threw nothing interesting at the Storm. And admittedly, the Storm are one of the great defensive sides in this competition, but man, you want to see a little bit more than that at home. But I don't know. I guess there's still half a season to go, isn't there?
The funniest thing was the Storm scored a try in the 36th minute and then the 41st minute.
Yeah, just before and just after halftime. Nice
anyone
one.
who plays or follows sport knows that the key idea is not to concede points either before or after halftime. Kind of summed everything up in my eyes about the Warriors wildcard, but we'll move on to Blackcaps, who defeated Afghanistan quite convincingly as the Blackcaps can at this World Cup. We'll start with there's not much to talk about with the batting side of things. Ross Taylor, Kane Williamson, they're scoring all the runs. So any discussion, I think, wildcard, when we move on to the batting side of things, will be about the fact that Williamson and Taylor are scoring all the runs and other guys aren't scoring the runs, which is in a stark contrast to what's happening on the bowling side of things, where Jimmy Neesham just came out and took 5 wickets. After talking about Lockie Ferguson as a real undercover bowler for the Blackcaps, he took 4 wickets, and I think Lockie Ferguson now leads all wicket takers at this World Cup. Let me just check this out. Lockie Ferguson is first in World Cup wickets with 8 wickets, average of 12.37, RPO of 3.88. After the Australia versus India game, Mitchell Starc climbed up to 3rd. So before that game, you had Ferguson, Henry and Neesham as the 3 leading wicket takers of the World Cup so far. Mitchell Starc climbed up to 3rd. But Lockie Ferguson's RPO, 3.88, is the only RPO in this World Cup of any bowler, any of the 14 bowlers who have taken more than 5 wickets wildcard. So Lockie Ferguson is the most economical and effective bowler at this World Cup, which aligns with Lockie Ferguson just being the best bowler because he's got the most wickets and best average and lowest RPO. So Lockie Ferguson's shining, but that came after we talked about Lockie Ferguson flying under the radar. Matt Henry was the headline act from the first 2 games, then Lockie Ferguson stepped up. But I want to start with Jimmy Neesham wildcard because Jimmy Neesham's always been a reasonable topic of conversation when we're doing podcasts about the Blackcaps and the balance between bat and ball with Jimmy Neesham. My idea here, wildcard, is to ask you if you think Jimmy Neesham will take more than 3 wickets in a game throughout the rest of the World Cup.
Well, in response, I would say, does he have to? I think he kind of popped up at a great time against Afghanistan, got a bunch of nice wickets. I didn't think it was it's the best he's ever bowled in terms of his bowling figures. I'm not sure it's the best he's ever bowled in terms of like actual performance. Like there's, I think of one wicket was a slog to the boundary. I think it was his first one. Fella caught on the edge there. Like yeah, sweet as. Another guy chased a wide one. Like it's not like he was ripping it around unplayable like Trent Boult. But Jimmy Neesham is the fifth, maybe even sixth bowler in this Blackcaps lineup as it currently stands. He doesn't need to do that. He just needs to hit good areas and, just ask a couple of questions. It doesn't have to be complicated questions, just enough to maybe tie up a batsman who's looking to go after what he might view as the release bowler. So I think it's good science. It's great science to see him do that. I don't think he'll get 3 wickets or more in a game for the rest of the World Cup, but I also just don't think he's going to have to, because you're going to fall back against the better teams, and I expect this will be a large topic of this conversation, which is that, this tournament was arranged in a way where the Blackcaps played 3... I'm not sure if they were the 3 worst teams at the tournament or not. I think it's just too easy to say that right now, but... the 3 relatively winnable games early on, which helped them ease into the tournament nicely, sitting top of the table and all that. It's going to get harder from here on in, and you're going to want to rely more on, for example, Lockie Ferguson, who's been fantastic up to date. Like you say, I agree. I think he's been the best bowler at the World Cup so far. Slight asterisk just because he has to also be able to do that against, India next up and Australia or England, teams like that later on. And you're going to want to have to rely on the complete opposite of Lockie Ferguson stepping up and doing everything right now is Trent Boult, who's been quietly solid but just hasn't got the wickets so far. Trent Boult's going to have to be a factor against the better teams as well. And also, I guess, spin. Well, you're going to have to hope that spin can do something. So there's a lot of other options there, and Jimmy Neesham just has to be able to give you 5 to 10 overs a game of not getting smashed and maybe chipping in with 1 wicket. He doesn't have to take a whole bunch, so... Won't get more than 3 in a game again, but I think that doesn't mean he won't be doing his job.
Correctamundo. I think it's like it's a bonus for Jimmy Neesham to take 5 wickets in a game. But that sets the scene. Or just before that, it was interesting. I think in the review show on the YouTube channel from ICC, I think it was Ross Taylor who said that Jimmy Neesham bowls pretty hostile spells in the nets, and it was just about getting him to come into a game and bowl with that same vigour. But then you said it wasn't... Well, we don't know what Jimmy Neesham's best bowling is, because he has a habit, for a variety of different reasons. Jimmy Neesham takes wickets with what appear to be fairly mediocre deliveries. So it's we don't... What is Jimmy Neesham's best bowling? Is Jimmy Neesham's best bowling passing the outside edge, running in, hitting the top of off stump with a couple of bumpers and over and not taking any wickets? Or is Jimmy Neesham's best bowling steaming in, bowling however he wants to bowl and taking wickets? We don't know what Jimmy Neesham's best bowling is, because, as we've said kind of numerous times, Jimmy Neesham does tend to take wickets with not his best deliveries, which is a
nice habit to have.
Yes, but it's quite a wide-ranging story to tell as to why that happens. But that's just how it is. So Trent Boult's been a little bit quiet in terms of wickets. How do you see this trio of seamers who lead the World Cup right now? How do you see them translating into the next phase of the World Cup, which starts with India, who just smoked Australia?
Yeah, that was... I watched a lot of that India-Australia game, and it was a little eye-opening in a couple ways. Mostly just, bloody hell, those Australian bowlers I thought were so top class, and Cummins and Stark certainly are. Cummins and Stark locked it down for the first half of that innings, and then India just saw them off and destroyed the rest of their attack. Sort of, Colton Nile at least asked a couple questions. He bounced the ball a couple nice times. He got a bit of bounce. He got a bit of intrigue going on. But bloody Zampa was rubbish. And Stoinis at the end there took a absolutely stunning caught and bowl, but didn't do much else with the ball. He couldn't hit his lengths. Not too impressed with that. But India are a pretty menacing task right now, and guess who we've got next? It's India. So I think when you look at that, the reason Australia struggled is because they didn't get early wickets. Their best bowlers, Sharma and Dhawan at the top there, were just able to sort of see them off and wait till the weaker guys came around, and you know that they can do exactly the same thing they did there. Virat Kohli as well with a big innings, Dhoni and Rahul at the end having a bit of a whack and putting the ball over the boundary. Like these are things they can do to Grandhomme, to Neesham, to, I would suggest, Matt Henry as well. I think would be in a little bit of danger of this if he isn't doing anything with the ball. So something Mike Hesson said in his newspaper column yesterday after that game was that he thinks that to have some success against these top teams, we're going to have to be able to swing the ball. And in order to swing the ball, you got to pick your best bowlers. Trent Bolt's been saying that the ball, for whatever, I think he said it was a little glossier or something like that. He reckons it's getting a little more shape than usual, which is good sign for Trent Bolt, because when he nips the ball around, he's like absolute top of the table there. I think we're going to have to pick Tim Southee still. As soon as Southee's fit, I think he comes back in, probably for Matt Henry, and I'm not convinced that Colin de Grandhomme will hold his spot ahead of... I mean, Hess seemed to think that maybe you want Hank Nichols in there as an extra batsman, just someone to like extend the middle order. I'm not 100% certain on that. I think I'd still lean towards squeezing Anish Sodhi back in and having a second spinner, a spinner you can attack with, to go with Mitch Santner, a spinner you can defend with. So, I mean, Ferguson, Bolt, no dramas there. They've both been great. Ferguson still is going to have to step it up against better opposition, but he can't have done better than what he's done so far, so I don't think we've got to worry about that. I don't want to be too harsh on Matt Henry because he didn't bowl well against Afghanistan, but he bowled very well against Sri Lanka, pretty well against Bangladesh. I mean, he had a good spell and a bad spell against Bangladesh, but like he got a lot of headlines because he got a lot of wickets in the first two games, and then we saw the flip side of that against Afghanistan where they were sort of scoring at more than a run a ball after 10 overs without losing a wicket. Obviously, that soon changed, but yeah, I don't think you can get too ahead of ourselves on Matt Henry after the first two games. I don't think we can get too down on ourselves after the last game, so I'm not saying he should be dropped. I'm just saying that with a horses for courses approach, I think Tim Southee gives us a better upside going into games against the top teams at this tournament, which is what we've basically got for the rest of the time now.
Matt Henry definitely feels, and I've alluded to this throughout the World Cup, Matt Henry feels like the type of bowler who would get absolutely spanked by Rohit Sharma and Shikhar Dhawan.
Well, it's happened before against, David Warner and Aaron Finch.
I wouldn't quite classify that Australian performance in the same bracket as what this Indian team's up to.
Well, he's been tonked by Aussie before, and India are at another level, so that's an even more scary prospect.
Yeah, India do not give a fuck about who's bowling. They're going to try and score a few runs. So, yeah, it's just, that's what... Strictly for those three bowlers, you're kind of pointing towards maybe Matt Henry making way for Tim Southee. All of that situation around those three bowlers, Matt Henry, Lockie Ferguson, and even Jimmy Neesham, the whole, there's so much depth there as to the fascination around which of those three bowlers is in the... I'm not even going to say that we're going to have any of those three in the top, where they are now in terms of leading wicket takers in the World Cup. If we have any of those three in the top 5, 6, 7, I'm just fascinated as to who one of those three is, because Jimmy Neesham could continue to take 1 or 2 wickets every game, and that's going to put him in a good spot. Matt Henry could prove us all wrong and just swing the ball, nip the ball around. Lockie Ferguson, if he stays in that top 5 wicket taker bracket, he's going to be a breakout star of the World Cup. So I'm just fascinated as to which of those bowlers, and that obviously flows into team selection, because to take wickets, you've got to be bowling overs. To bowl overs, you've got to be selected in the team. So it all ties together, and just my fascination which of those three bowlers moves through this next phase of the World Cup in the best position. Then we flow into those team changes because, you might bring in Tim Southee, you might bring in Shoddy, you might bring in Henry Nicholls. Fuck it, you might bring in Tom Blundell just because it's the Blackcaps, and that's what they like to do, is just offer these curveball selections. Bringing in Tim Southee, you would have to be fairly confident that conditions are going to be conducive to Tim Southee bowling, and I'm not sure that the Nottingham pitch, which is where they're going to play, I'm not sure that is exactly the type of pitch where we want to see Tim Southee bowling. Let me just scroll through the previous games at Nottingham. You had Australia, they defeated West Indies at Nottingham. Australia scored 288, West Indies scored 273. 19 wickets were taken though, so maybe a bit of action there in terms of what the pitch offers the ball. But then we go back to Pakistan versus England. 348 versus 334. 8 wickets and 9 wickets, so 17 wickets taken in that game. And I'm pretty sure there was another game. I think India played there. No, they didn't apparently. So there's only been 2 games there so far, but they are high-scoring affairs. And it's just, whether Tim Southee is genuinely going to be able to move the ball, because as we've seen, Trent Bolt's talking about the ball moving more. Trent Bolt's talking about the ball swinging and the glossy and the change of balls and the new batch and all that cricket lingo that gets used when we are talking about balls, and yet Trent Bolt's only taken 3 wickets in 3 games, averaging 40.66. RP of 4.2. So we know Trent Bowler's one of the best kind of 4 or 5 seamers in the world. He's the Blackcaps' best bowler. He's talking about more swing movement, but it's not translating directly into wickets. Obviously, there's great scope for Trent Bolt to improve and take wickets against, or take more meaningful wickets is the best way to say it. But if Trent Bolt's not taking wickets against weaker opposition with the ball that is apparently swinging the most it's swung in a couple of years in terms of one-day cricket, is that going to be conducive to Tim Southee coming in to take wickets?
Fair question. It also depends on whether you're comparing Tim Southee to Tim Southee that we might get in this game compared to Tim Southee at his peak when he's swinging the ball around heaps and just catching edges, or whether you're comparing Tim Southee and what we might get in this game to Matt Henry and what he might offer in this game. And I still just am not 100% confident with Henry not getting tonked against India. And I think Southee's played against India a lot in the past. Southee, who has great experience at these tournaments. Southee, who has been injured but has, because of that, been kept relatively fresh. I just think he's a slightly better option there. But I'll tell you who's taken a lot of wickets in Nottingham in the past is Ish Sodhi.
Has he?
Played a fair bit in the old... I think he won a... was it a one-day comp or a T20 comp with Nottinghamshire?
He definitely won a 2020 comp. And it probably was with Nottinghamshire, yeah.
So there you go, taken a few wickets at this ground himself in the past. Would not be at all again. I mean, I understand the team selection so far. I wouldn't argue with anything. The first couple were injury defined. They didn't really have choices to make other than whether you want that extra spinner. And I don't think against the teams we've played so far that they would have. Against India, with the likelihood of there being an extra 150 runs in this game, I think you probably do want to spin it because you're going to accept that your fellas are going to get hit a little bit more, so you need that guy who can attack against an attacking batsman. And I think Sodhi is probably, I don't want to say the only one in the squad who can do that, because I think Trent Bolt could squeeze in that category as well, because Trent Bolt can do pretty much anything with the ball. But I mean, it's a good weapon to have.
It's a very good weapon to have. I just don't get the vibe that the decision makers in the Blackcaps are that attacking with how they're thinking. I think this is and it's not good. Like, I'm not saying this is a good thing, because we'd both prefer to see a Blackcaps team going out for the kill, going out to win games, and going out to, we're here to take wickets, we're here to score runs, and we're not here to try and restrict you to 5 runs per over, dot you up, and blah, blah, blah. No. We want to see Ish Sodhi coming in and taking wickets. We want to see a bit of risk. We want to see a team that believes they can win big games and win the World Cup. Whereas I believe the Blackcaps decision makers are a bit more passive and a bit more standoffish in how they approach cricket. Not just at this World Cup, because we've seen it throughout our time covering the Blackcaps and covering their antics. And you compare Ish Sodhi to Adil Rashid with England. Anytime they're talking about Adil Rashid, I think I mentioned this the last episode or the episode before, Adil Rashid has full confidence from his skipper that his job is to take wickets, and sometimes it's going to work, sometimes it's not going to work, but it's been established over a course of 4 years that another wrinkle to that is, again, from Test Match Special podcast, they were talking about what England bounced or pivoted from their last World Cup campaign, and I think it was Trevor Bayliss, their coach. He said, in the aftermath of that World Cup, that he wanted a spinner who could spin the ball both ways. So that man was Adil Rashid, and then Adil Rashid was put in that position for 4 years to fine-tune his art. I don't think the Blackcaps think that way. I think the Blackcaps think Mitchell Santner's going to do a job to stemmy the flow of runs, and then our seamers will be the ones who benefit from that. I don't think definitely against India. I'll just check out Adam Zampa's stats, because they are very different leggies. Like, Ish Sodhi's a much taller leggy than Adam Zampa. I think Adam Zampa is more similar to Indian leg spinners, which didn't
work out too well for him.
Yeah, he bowled 6 overs at an RPO of 8.33. He was the second most expensive Australian bowler to Marcus Stoinis. So India could do that to Ish Sodhi, and I think that, combined with this passive mindset of the Blackcaps, is not going to result in Ish Sodhi being selected. You mentioned Colin de Grandhomme. There's options around there. So even if you bring in Tim Southee for Colin de Grandhomme, it's not the worst move, because you've still got Jimmy Neesham at 6, Mitchell Santner at 7. Matt Henry and Tim Southee can do a job with the bat if they are required. If you're going down the Henry Nicholls to bolster the batting order line of thinking, I think you're leaving yourself short a bowler against these quality opposition. Like, you need options, and even if it's Colin de Grandhomme, he's going to come in, he might nibble the ball around, he's got a few variations, he might pick up a key wicket here and there, but if you're taking out Colin de Grandhomme and putting Henry Nicholls in, then suddenly Colin Munro is the 6th bowler.
Yeah, and Jimmy Neesham is your 5th bowler, which, he's just got a bunch of wickets, so you'd be trading high on him, but at the same time, the old stock market values is you buy low, sell high. I don't think you want to be pushing Neesham into a bigger, more prominent role just because he had one very good wicket-taking innings. I think you keep him, he did well in that role, so you keep him in that role. You don't ask him to do more than what he's comfortable with. And he is a confidence player, so, it might help him, but I think you leave him what he's doing, what he's done well with so far. And I'm completely with you with Henry Nicholls. If Henry Nicholls plays, he has to open, or he has to be coming in for an injured player in the top 5. I don't see the point in taking out a bowling option to bolster a batting lineup, which, your number 6 batsman shouldn't have to be scoring the bulk of your runs, because someone in your top 4 should be scoring 100 or something close to it if you're going to get a big score against a good team. So asking Henry Nicholls to come in at 6 and solve things, I think, is just a negative way of thinking, because it's planning for the failure of your top order. And if you're planning for failure, then you're not going to make the semi-finals, you're not going to win many games of the World Cup anyway, so what's the point? I'd, just like you, much rather see them being attacking and proactive with these things. But that's, I think, one of the things, because Lockie Ferguson's stats are fantastic, but it's not just the stats, it's the eye test with him, because he's been so aggressive. He's bouncing guys, he's, steaming in and bowling fast consistently over a spell. He's not afraid to go around the wicket or mix things up. He's got catches in weird positions. Like, I've enjoyed Williamson's captaincy for Lockie Ferguson. I think he's hopefully enjoying that himself, just being able to really be aggressive. And there are a lot of lessons we can learn from the way Australia lost to India. And the number one is that same thing about, like, if you don't take early wickets against this team, if you let those guys get in, they're just going to destroy it. And a few times Aaron Finch was forced to bring back Stark or Cummins just because his other guys weren't able to restrict India. So through the middle overs, he was having to give like 1 or 2 over spells to these guys with overs that he'd probably much rather have been saving until the last 10. They came in and bowled well. They didn't get the wicket. Stark ended up ruining his figures by bowling crap at the death and just couldn't keep his line straight. So I don't know what's going on there. But if he bowls like that against us later on in the tournament, I'll be pretty happy. Somehow I don't think that's what's going to happen. But yeah, like, you've got to be able to attack through those middle overs, and you've got to be able to get early wickets. So I mean, it's just trying to restrict a team like India is just playing with fire. You're gonna get pretty thoroughly burnt there.
Just an interesting note about India. I'm just watching Adam Zampa bowl his first over here, actually. And India, at the start of the 11th over, they were 44 for none. So it's an RP of 4. So Rohit Sharma is currently on 18 runs off 31 deliveries. And you've got Dhawan on 28 runs off 37 deliveries. So those strike rates are fairly low.
Was Zampa the first change?
I'm not sure. He's bowling over number 12.
I'm not sure that he will. I think Colton I might have had an over or two before that. But yeah, they bowled at least 4 through for Cummins and Stark. It's like I was saying, the Indian openers just saw them off. Just gave them Dan Vittori treatment. Like, you can score, in modern ODI cricket, you can score 4 and over of anyone if you want it. You can just pick singles and 1 or 2 balls and over you got a block or you miss out on. And occasionally a bad ball comes along, put it to the fence, done. Like, you can score 4 and over in your sleep, and if you're a batsman, especially in that India top order. So it's pretty easy just to see them off and attack the release guys, which is exactly what they did there.
Yeah, so at the start of the 11th over, they were going at 4 runs and over, and then they went on to score 352 runs in 50 overs.
Bloody hell.
Like, that's absolutely bonkers, but it just goes to show. And that flows into because this is an idea I raised during the Blackcaps versus India home series over the summer, was the different ways to get to 300 runs. And the Blackcaps way is to go ballistic from ball 1 with Colin Munro and Martin Guptill. Whereas the Indian way is to not lose a wicket in the first 10 overs and then trust that you've got the hitting power. Like, Hardik Pandya is batting number 4. KL Rahul, I'm pretty sure, is opened in Test match cricket and is a top order player in all formats. He's batting number 6, and there's just an immense trust. You got Dhoni, obviously Dhoni's Dhoni. There's immense trust in their batting lineup. So it just goes to show there are different ways of sneaking up to that 300 or blasting your way to 350 at 7 runs and over after going for 4 runs and over through the first 11 overs. So just to swing it back to the Blackcaps, and just to swing back to Jimmy Neesham, I just got to touch on a few points here. Another trend we have noticed about the Blackcaps selection style is they are incredibly reactionary. So I can completely envision a scenario where Jimmy Neesham comes in, takes 5 wickets against Afghanistan. Next game, Jimmy Neesham has greater responsibility with the ball. And Jimmy Neesham is the 5th bowler because Colin de Grandhomme has been dropped for Henry Nicholls. And all of that is made possible from the reactionary belief that Jimmy Neesham, his wicket-taking bowling is sustainable throughout the World Cup, which is so reactionary and lacks any strong planning that it's just a weird scenario. So you kind of suggested that would be a bad idea. I'm throwing it up that the trend from the Blackcaps is to do exactly that and to give Jimmy Neesham more responsibility after what appears to be a high watermark for Jimmy Neesham's bowling.
Yeah, you're probably not wrong there. I mean, it's going to be pretty interesting because we're going to learn a lot about this team over the next couple of weeks, because the way the draw worked out is we had 3 winnable games first up, and they won all 3 of them. 2 of them quite comprehensively, one of them against a team that's been a bit of a bogey team for them recently in Bangladesh. They made it difficult for themselves. It should have been a lot more comfortable than it was. But I actually think, we talked about this last time, that difficult when having to really scrap for it after a few of their own mistakes, digging themselves a bit of a hole and then climbing out of it, I think is probably the most useful of the 3 victories for the Blackcaps, because it got them into that grind. It got them out of that, mindset where we pump the teams worse than us and struggle against the teams better than us, which is a bit of a New Zealand sport thing to do sometimes, and just not exactly where you want to be at a Cricket World Cup. So obviously things get tougher now. They play India, then South Africa, West Indies, Pakistan, finish with Australia and England. This game against India is a game, because of the way the tables worked out, it's kind of a game they can afford to lose. I don't think that's in any way like a way to approach it. Obviously, you look at a game where 3 wins from 3 so far, coming up against potentially the best team at the tournament. Sure, you can get away with losing this one, but it also means you've got nothing to lose, so absolutely go for it and get a massive victory under your belt if you can. They pumped them in the warm-ups, little bit of a few extra circumstances going on there. I don't think India were very well prepared for that game. They also were further out because they had that delayed start to the World Cup. They've still only played 2 games, and yeah, that was a weird one, because apparently they wanted extra time to recover from the IPL, which just seems outrageously stupid, because schedule the IPL a week earlier if that's your problem. Don't affect the international tournament at the expense of a domestic one, but whatever. That's the ICC / the BCCI / Indian cricket in general for you. So things get tougher from this point on, and some of the lessons that we've learned from these first 3 games aren't necessarily ones that will translate into the next remaining, 6 plus. But because they did the business, because they won those 3 games in a row, I think they're in a position now where I suspect 6 wins with a good net run rate, which is what they have after 2 big victories so far. A good net run rate and 6 wins will probably get you into the semis. I reckon 7 will definitely do it. So to get to 6 wins from here, the Blackcaps just got to win 3 out of 6. They just got to go 50% the rest of the way. That's doable. That's definitely doable. They've put themselves in a great position by getting their most winnable games out of the way early on, getting their confidence up, getting some momentum, getting a bit of rhythm going. And now I guess we see what they do, because there's a possibility they lose all that momentum by getting smashed by India and lose a good chunk of their net run rate. So that's another factor to look here, is even if they lose, don't get thrashed, because that net run rate is going to be very, very crucial for a team in New Zealand's position, where it could be the difference between finishing 4th and 5th. So, yeah, it's definitely going to be a different kind of stage here. We've sort of got the introductions out of the way, and now we hit the real chunk of the story, I guess, Doc.
Getting exciting. It's getting exciting. Yeah. At least we've got runs from Kane Williamson and Ross Taylor as well. For the Blackcaps to do anything in this World Cup, they will need more runs from Kane Williamson and Ross Taylor. And to be honest, the best thing about these 3 games to start the World Cup has been watching Kane Williamson and Ross Taylor spend a lot of time in the middle, because there's nothing better as a Kiwi cricket fan, other than Trent Boult, Tim Southee hooping the ball around. The best thing about being a Kiwi cricket fan is watching, for me it's watching Ross Taylor bat, closely followed by watching Kane Williamson bat. So it's been a beautiful thing. Early mornings, bit of Ross Taylor, bit of Kano, set your day off right, wildcard.
Are you in on the old hype train of them being terrible runners between the wicket? Because, I see, obviously, the proof's in the pudding a little bit there, and that they've had a fair few mishaps in the past, had a couple early on. I think people are very much overreacting to that, and to be honest, a little bit annoying, because I just got, 0 times have they been run out together in this World Cup so far. For a couple batsmen like that who who like to drop the ball and run, get those quick singles, turn the strike over. You're going to have one or two close ones all the time. I think the actual strike rate of them getting run, like on one hand there are a pair who have had a few too many run-outs together and even more scares. On the other hand, they're New Zealand's most successful all-time ODI batting partnership. So, do you want to look at the glass half empty or the glass half full is the way I see this whole debate.
Yeah, and Bangladesh's running wasn't particularly crash hot as well. Like New Zealand could have easily lost that game against Bangladesh if Bangladesh just Bangladesh could have easily won if they executed. Well, I'm confusing myself with that idea, but I agree with you that
they had a key run out in their batting innings and a key run out missed in their bowling innings, didn't they? So kind of swing moments.
Correct. Running between the wickets is hard. Like it's not the easiest thing to do. Of course, it gets easier when you're batting with an individual over a long period of time, and you can get some chemistry. But as you said, the quality of Ross Taylor and Kane Williamson is that they are always looking for ones and twos. And of all the Blackcaps batsmen, they are going to be the batsmen who are looking for ones and twos the most. And if you get two of those type of batsmen together who are searching for ones and twos at a higher rate than any other Blackcaps batsman, the chances are you're probably going to have more confusion. You're probably going to have more run-outs. So it seems like a fairly...
averages, isn't it?
Yeah, it seems like a fairly common sense conclusion there, Wildcard. But we will wrap it up there. The Blackcaps are not in action until...
Thursday night, I believe.
Thursday overnight. It's a 9:30 game, so a little cheeky. I believe it's a 10:30 start over in England for Blackcaps versus India. So
morning dew.
You want to see New Zealand bowl first in those type of conditions, and the whole situation of bowling first and batting first, like should we bat first so we can feel a different, game situation, that's gone. That if that was going to happen, that was going to happen in the first three games. But against India, you need to be bowling first, but to get those favourable early conditions, maybe bring Tam Southee in to benefit from those early conditions. Let me just check the start times of those other Nottingham games for you, Wildcard. The Australia-West Indies was one.
Well, as you do that, Kane Williamson 3 tosses out of 3. Because New Zealand cricket tend to have a terrible result with tossing a coin, which seems like a crazy thing because it's just 50-50. It's just the epitome of luck. But 3 out of 3, so far so good for Kane. He's calling them.
Sorry, there was a third game at Nottingham, and it was that Pakistan versus West Indies game where both teams scored just over 100 because West Indies rolled Pakistan, and all 3 of those games started at 10:30, so not much of a trend to pull out of those because some games had a lot of runs, some games had few runs. But if you're a Blackcaps bowling attack, you want to be bowling first at 10:30, nice juicy pitch, and get a few wickets early against India, see what they can do. We will be back. There's a rugby league podcast to record in the coming 24 hours, talking about the Warriors more specifically by myself, and then we will be back maybe after the football ferns get their World Cup started, which is on Wednesday, Wildcard.
Wednesday morning, 1 a.m. versus Netherlands.
Cool, so we might come back with a Football Ferns podcast on Wednesday for you as well. Otherwise, I've written about the Kiwi Surfers, I've written about the Warriors. Wildcard has written about Joseph Parker. He will have his Flying Kiwis is probably on the agenda well over the coming days. Anything else that you're writing about, Wildcard?
For the Wellington Phoenix with Stefan Marinovic signing, I did a 2-part preview of the Women's World Cup, which has already started, but still worth the geese if you want to get up to date on a few of these teams. There's plenty of football coming up. Football Ferns might have a preview before their game, or they might just talk about the Michaela Moore injury, which just happened overnight. So that was a bit of a spanner in the works, a bit of a bummer going into a World Cup. But plenty on the agenda for the niche cash, that's for sure.
Roger Dodger, we'll be back on Wednesday, and until then, keep it real, support the niche cash, and think about the Blackcaps 24/7. until you can't no more, until you've thought about all the different ways Jimmy Neesham can take wickets, or all the different ways Tim Southee can move the ball in the air off the pitch. See you later.